I promised that I would post a video on the lunar wave that has been found by so many people online. Now, the first thing that I want to address is, in my opinion, there's no way this could be a hoax. The reason why I say that is because not only have multiple people captured it on different camera devices, but they've also seen it with their own eyes. And although some people might not be telling the truth, there are more and more people coming out saying they have seen these waves on the moon with their own eyes through a telescope as it moves across the sky. Now, I will be performing this task on my own at a later date. The concept of the lunar wave fascinates me simply because it is another piece of this puzzle or this great mystery that we're trying to figure out. I don't think it's fair to dismiss everything immediately. I think this should be open for logical debate, and it should be looked at in the Simuology community as more evidence to the fact that we live in a simulation. Now, a lot of people, when they describe the lunar wave, they say it's more of a hologram. I have a feeling that it's hard for some people to accept the fact that this reality is merely just a frequency and vibration of consciousness. I believe that because the mass public is conditioned to believe that we live in base reality, which is to say this is the true reality, they feel as though if something cannot be explained, such as this lunar wave, then it must be some type of energy or hologram being projected. This reminds me of the movie The Truman Show, where in one of the scenes, Jim Carrey is sitting by the beach and lightning strikes out in the ocean. During this time, the light from the lightning is reflected off the moon. Now, although this isn't noticed by Jim Carrey's character, it also went unnoticed by the majority of people watching the film. The idea was to say that the moon is a projection on a dome under which the character was living. So because of this, it's the case when the light is as bright as lightning is flashed, it reflects up off the top of the dome structure itself. Now, we don't have a situation like that happening in our existence. Therefore, I don't know if I fully believe that we are living under a dome-type structure. However, I will say that even though I don't subscribe to the theory of flat Earth, their findings are actually supportive more of living in a simulation. In this first clip, I'm going to show you a lunar wave that was popularized over the past 7 years by a user named Crow777. His original post captured my attention and made me question the authenticity of the moon, which I can see clearly with my own eyes. It made me wonder even further if the concept of a hologram or projection was possible. As I later investigated the clues to simulation theory, I began to understand that this was just one of part of even a bigger mystery that we need to try to understand. So here is the first clip in question that I want you to look at.
So I'm filming one night looking for objects. I pan my camera down and the wave starts, this hologram wave. I don't notice it. And then it catches up to the camera and I do notice it. I glance at the moon, but when you're staring at things, you don't know whether it's your eyes or what. And then I notice a second wave coming. And at this point, I'm thinking it's my camera.
Now, a lot of people might think that it's just this one guy posting videos on YouTube for views. Maybe he's faking the footage by using computer technology or some type of editing animation. I don't know. Some of you might also think that the footage is merely just an artifact of a glitch in his camera. What I'd like to introduce you to is a theory that states otherwise by not only showing you what others have captured, but as well the comments from people who have seen this with their own eyes when they look through a telescope. If this is possible, then surely it could be duplicated by you or me in order to find out if it's valid. This is where the method of science comes into play with Simuology. Science is a method of questioning, experimenting, and validating based on information that is presented. Therefore, when we look at something like this, we need to question the likelihood of it being fake. And in doing so, find within reasonable doubt that it's not. We also need to experiment and do our own research by going outside and looking at the moon through a telescope or binoculars or recording it with our own devices. This in turn will validate the fact that the lunar wave is present. This is a very important step because when we try to prove the existence of the simulation, we need to have these methods in place in order to do so. So let's take a look at what other people have done. Here's another video from user Deceptive Little Universe, which shows a lunar wave in 2019. As you can see in this video, the wave itself is not moving in the same direction as previous recordings. Therefore, if this is a glitch, then it is a glitch that does not happen in the same spot every single time. We can think of this in a rendering of a computer. When something needs to be rendered on a computer screen, then chances of it being rendered a certain way in a glitch happening every single time would show up in multiple spots across the render. And it doesn't necessarily have to happen in the same spot every time. Now, if this was something that was happening in the same spot every single time and moving in the same direction every time, I would be more inclined to believe that something specific in that area was causing this type of frequency wave or glitch wave. And I would further prove that the moon could actually be an object up in that space. However, since it's not happening in the same exact spot every time, and the lunar wave does not move across the moon in the same direction every single time, I'm inclined to believe that this is not something located in a specific area causing this to happen. Instead, I'm more inclined to believe that it's a randomness built into the movement being rendered. The one thing I want you to pay attention to when we look at these videos is how the wave causes the movement of the moon. And what I mean by this is that the moon is in one location, and as the wave moves across, it has shifted into another location. It's because of this observation that I believe this to be a rendering glitch and possibly done on a larger holographic projection or simply something within our own conscious viewing of the simulation. Now, a lot of you might claim that we've been to the moon. So how could it be a hologram or simulation if we've been there? Well, that's a good question. And it falls along the lines of conspiracy theory when there's a lot of information that backs up and supports the fact that we never really went. In fact, it's quite interesting to think that we had a hard time explaining our reality in the 60s and thereby can see various recently declassified documents showing proof of the simulation. Now, this isn't a debate whether we went to the moon or not. I just find it curious that we haven't returned to the moon since the 70s. In fact, I find it even more curious that we have privatized space and advanced in space travel technology in the past 5 years from what NASA would have done in 50, and yet we still don't have plans to go to the moon. This is very odd considering that in my 41 years, there has not been a lunar trip. But that's for another conspiracy video. Getting back to the lunar wave, it makes me think that this phenomenon is prompted by a glitch in the system's rendering. And we notice it now because we have the technology. Our technology is advanced enough to capture it. To my surprise, the fascination comes from the comments of the individuals who has witnessed this for themselves. While it's true that you cannot take one person's word for it, when more and more people are speaking up against it, you have to start to take notice and understand that there's more to this phenomenon than what we're being shown. The real nail in the coffin for the holographic moon led me from the lunar wave to something even more questionable and fascinating at the same time. A few months ago, a video was posted by user SecureTeam10 on craft that was hovering and moving across the surface of the moon. This craft was captured on camera without the use of a telescope. What you might be wondering is, how is this possible? The truth is, when we look at the simulation, okay, and we talk about the moon, technically the moon is as far away from us as mainstream science would like us to believe. We listen to mainstream science. Therefore, in Simuology, when we look at the moon from the perspective of simulation theory, we might not consider it a hologram, but we definitely do not consider it to be real. After all, I find it very interesting that the moon is not only perfectly round and stays in a precise orbit around the Earth, but it also is the exact same size as the sun in comparison to our viewpoint. This is why we're able to have a total eclipse when the sun moves behind the moon. The moon blocks out almost 100% of the light. Not only is this a rare oddity, but its probability of actually happening is 1 in billions, or possibly even more. In fact, other planets that have moons orbiting them do not have the same effect what the Earth does from its moon. As science would say, the Earth and the moon are one of a kind, and there's no duplicating it throughout the entire universe. But how could this be? In Simuology, it exists because everything is designed as a simulation. Therefore, the moon is designed, the sun is designed, the stars, space, etc. They're all designed. And the point is, the rarity of our existence leads more to the fact that it was created and exists for a reason. In this next video I'm about to show you, there's actual proof to the flat moon or holographic theory, which is the most convincing piece of evidence I've ever seen. Now, bear in mind that there is not one person who has claimed this exact thing that I'm about to say. There is a UFO that goes across the surface of the moon, and it is captured by user Dargana M in Serbia. What you're about to see will not only blow your mind, but will also prove that the moon is completely flat and is a projected image either on something or is just a simulated holographic illusion within our simulation itself. Now, how would I know this, and why is it that I'm the only one out there talking about it? Everybody has a mainstream media idea of what UFOs are. They do not take into consideration how we look at things in Simuology. Therefore, the mainstream is not looking at this as a projected hologram of the moon with something over top of it. Instead, people are looking at it as an actual craft on the surface of the moon. But I'm going to explain to you why it's not that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the footage. Now, as you can see, right in the beginning, the camera kind of shakes around. This is a normal camera that she's using, and there's the craft, and it goes across the surface of the moon with the shadow. I want you to notice something again as we replay it. Look at it as we pause right here. You can see the shadow, and you can see the craft, but I'm telling you right now, if that is the curvature of the moon, and we can tell that it is curved because the crater that has exploded is curving in different dimensions to show depth to the moon, that shadow should no longer be connected to that craft. In fact, the shadow should start to elongate and even stretch further away from the craft itself. But watch as we continue the footage at a slower rate. You can see that as the craft nears the edge of the moon, that shadow stays consistent with the topographical features of the moon. It never changes. Because of this, there is no curvature to the moon. The moon is flat. And if you don't believe that, you can see it with your own eyes. Use your brain and question, why is it that in science we're taught that shadows elongate because of the curvature of a planetary system? And yet clearly here, we can see the shadow stays consistent all the way up to the end of the moon. Even at the very tip of the moon, the edge of it, that shadow stays flat and consistent with it. You are being fooled. You're being duped. You're being lied to. This entire thing is a simulated hoax. It is a thought experiment that is placed on us, and this reality does not exist. It only exists because you're consciously seeing it as existing, but it is not the true reality in which you came from, and it's definitely not the base reality from which we started. This is why Elon Musk has not gone to the moon. This is why NASA has not gone to the moon. This is why there is a war in Russia right now, and their only focus is on using SpaceX to send supplies to other parts of the world quickly. No one cares about going to Mars. No one cares about going to the moon. They say they do to encourage the public, but in the actual truth, the technology is so far advanced, and they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we live in a simulation. Elon Musk knows we live in a simulation. Neil deGrasse Tyson is questionable, but always ends up saying that he believes we live in a simulation. Physicists who have won Nobel Prizes believe we live in a simulation. Governments, high-level brass, the top elite believe we live in a simulation. And I don't think that it's just that they believe we live in a simulation. I think it's that they know we live in a simulation. That's the key thing to Simuology. And being a Simuologist, you have to look at these things with clarity and logic and reasoning. You have to use science against the paranormal and paranormal against science. You have to layer these clues on top of each other in order to find the connection. This is the most important video you are ever going to watch because it is so validating when it comes to proving that this reality is not what they say it is. There is so much more than just this. But if you're excited like I am about seeing this with your own eyes and having it have some form of clarity to you, then please, 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 you need to try Simuology and you need to take a look at the truth. You need to open your eyes. You need to wake up. I'm going to leave you with this, but I encourage you to continue watching my videos as I start exposing the simulation for what it really is. Nobody is exposing it the way that it should be. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please check out my other videos on our channel. Until next time, please stay safe and enjoy the journey.